Time lapses can be really awesome if they're shot right. They are a great complement to any kind of video footage, and they're standalone. So if you get a good time lapse, you can post it straight to your social media. However, if you're not doing it correctly, it's going to see jumpy, choppy. It's not going to be smooth. It's just not going to be good. Besides camera settings and everything, one of the key factors is your interval. The interval is the time between shots. So if you don't know, a time lapse is basically a lot of photos, and then, there's so much time between each photo. Now the camera can take the photo automatically, or most cameras nowadays have a software function that takes the photos and then stitches them all together into a time lapse. But no matter how you do it, you can do it manually, take the photos by yourself and then stitch them together in post-production, or have the camera do it automatically. However, you're always going to need to dictate what that interval is. That interval is so important because it has to match the scene that you're at. And what I mean by that is there's motion. You want motion in a time lapse. You don't want to just point it up to a clear blue sky and do a time lapse because you're not going to see anything. You need motion for a time lapse to be incredibly effective. And with the right motion, you have to time it with the correct interval between shots. Sorry about the wind, but we're on the beach and it kind of goes with the territory. What we're looking for is the difference between, we're going to say 2-second intervals versus 5-second intervals versus 10-second intervals. And we want to see, how the motion looks at each different scene. First stop is the beach, right on the shoreline, and with the ocean. It's in the morning, there's not many people here. We may see a random person walk by here and there, but we're looking at the motion of the water and the motion of what little bit of clouds we have in the sky. So, I'm not being real picky with the scenes because every scene's going to be different and you're going to have different dynamics going on all the time. It's just to show you the difference between the intervals and how they fit each different general kind of scene. Right now we have very little motion, so I'm guessing we could get away with the 10-second interval and be okay.
First is the 2-second, then the 5-second, and then a 10-second. And in this first scene, I want you to notice the clouds. The clouds are going to be basically the main subject of the time lapse. In fact, the clouds are always going to be important in time lapses that are done outside. They just show some beautiful movement, something that's just bigger than normal. You don't see clouds move like that normally. So when you do see it in a video, it just kind of captures your attention. But if your subject is like the people on the beach, you're going to want to slow that interval down. I think you can kind of see that in this comparison. You really need to determine what the subject is, and to be honest with you, sometimes you don't know that until you start shooting. So sometimes a nice middle ground like 5 is a good place to go.
That took incredibly too long. I'm on the beach early. There's not many people out there, but that one family comes strolling down the ramp and they think it's a good idea to sit right beside me, all in my space, and they have little kids. Now, don't get me wrong, I love kids. I have 2 kids, but you know, if you're not keeping an eye on them, they can tend to, you know, get into other people's space. And this family decided they were going on vacation completely and not paying any attention to their kids at all. So what do? They're walking right in front of my camera, picking up seashells, girls getting ready to touch my camera, and mom and dad, nowhere to be found as far as, you know, hey, don't do that. Hey, maybe you should give him some space. Hey, come back over here. Nothing. And it's just, people are just crazy, man. People are absolutely crazy. So here's a little bit of a different scene. We got a little bit of motion with some boats in the background, and you know, not really a whole lot as far as clouds go. Same thing as the last clip, but this one we should see a little bit of motion, a little bit of action with some boats going back and forth.
I would say the boats are probably the main subject of this time lapse, and you can see in the 2-second, the boats look pretty good. There's, you know, especially when there's a lot of them going back and forth, the boats look really nice. But when you get to the 5 and 10-second intervals, the boats are just kind of choppy looking. The water kind of stays the same. It just kind of speeds up or slows down according to whatever interval we're using. But the boats, I think, are a big part of this time lapse. And so therefore, I think I would shoot this in 2-second or 3-second interval. However, the clouds look better in the longer intervals because you're getting more motion out of them. So it's just important to identify what you think the main subject is before you start your time lapse.
So this scene's just a little bit different. There's a lot more motion. We have people walking by, and you know, cars and trucks and a lot of traffic going by. And so this will really help you get to see the differences between these different interval rates and how they correlate, you know, in a good time lapse in the right scene versus something where you can do it slower, like nighttime, where you can get away with like 15-second intervals. You can only really get away with intervals that are real long like that at nighttime, when the only thing that you're looking for motion is things in the sky like clouds and the stars.
All right, so this third scene is one that I think would surprise you. You would probably go into this time lapse thinking the people in the cars would be the main subject. However, after you get them onto the computer, you see that the clouds, the sky, since there was clouds and they were moving, I think the clouds become the main feature of the time lapse. You can see the difference. The clouds, they just have a real slow motion on the 2-second interval and even the 5-second interval. But when you get to that 10-second interval, the clouds just explode with beautiful motion. And I don't think the foreground changes a whole lot. I don't think it changes enough to go with the slower interval rate here. So if you're dealing with close-up traffic and people, then I would try to concentrate on the clouds. Hopefully you got to see some differences between the interval rate and how they affect the scene, and hopefully you can incorporate that into your photography and videography. I know it's helped me to see the comparisons, and now I'll be looking a little better at the subject, or what I think is going to be the subject, and then I'll go ahead and adjust my interval rate from there.